everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today. We're your boys. We always got something to say about the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playalog. And to help us talk about the Toronto Blue Jays today, we have a very special guest joining us. You have heard his voice before. I am almost sure of it. Welcoming in Mr. Ben Shulman, fellow Toronto Blue Jays fanatic, fellow Green Bay Packers fanatic, might I add. A man of great taste, if I can say so myself.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me on, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack, exactly. Yeah,
I couldn't respond to that. I can't do it. I can't do it.
I understand. They do play tonight, everybody. So if you see the Blue Jays Today Twitter account not tweeting as much during the game, you know why.
Good thing it's a 3:00 game.
That's
there you go.
Shoot,
there you go.
You are right
Multiple games
that.
We could watch today. Ben, so glad to have you on, man. So we saw you at Baseball Town last, and we heard a pretty funny story about a plane incident. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about that. There was something about you had to evacuate the plane because there was some pee.
Oh, yes.
You remember that? Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was thinking team plane for a sec. No, this was, where was this flight back from? It was from Sacramento, maybe? Or somewhere. I forget where we were coming back from.
It was right around, I want to say, right after the trade deadline.
Right after the deadline. So it must have been somewhere else. I forget where we were coming back from at that point. But it was a bunch of us were going back Colorado. That's where it was from. Going back from Colorado because I had done the first leg of that trip, but not the second. So coming back on a flight where I was on it, Hazel May was on the flight, Keegan Matheson, a couple other people. Mitch Bannon was on the flight as well. I'm probably forgetting one or two people that were on it. I mean, it sounds really disrespectful. I don't. But we got delayed for some sort of emergency on the plane, but there was some confusion, and this is secondhand reporting from someone else who was on the flight that I know, that there was pee involved in the back. There was a lot. I don't want to get too deep into it because I'm also going to sound like a bad guy, but a very confusing delay where there was a health thing, but no doctors came on the plane and no one left the plane, and we still took off.
Is that something that is completely unique and like that you've never seen that before? Like, is there any other like funny kind of weird travel stories that you've had, you know, when you are covering the team on the road like that?
I haven't had much of that. I mean, you'll get delays a lot, but usually they're just kind of mundane and boring. This involved like people sprinting up and down for either out of their seats to the front or people running to the back to help out with whatever the situation was there. So you don't see that much. You get delays here and there, but you usually just end up like crabby and at a subway in the Newark airport or whatever, just eating some food and whining about it. But yeah, that was eventful. And when we landed on that same flight that got delayed, I'm almost sure this was like a rookie pilot, and I don't have the flight number to air him out or anything. But,
no, of course.
We smacked the ground like hard, enough that there were audible gasps around me. And I would say that that's the craziest landing I've had, but I actually just did a basketball event in Central America, and when I came back, we bounced off the runway on our landing and then landed on it again. So all of a sudden I've topped it, but these things are not normal. Most flights I go on are very boring, and most airports are fairly smooth most of the time. So when something fun happens, you gotta remember it.
You gotta laugh about it. You know, it's funny. You know, good travel stories.
You're still alive.
Yeah,
so
you're
we
still
can
alive.
laugh about it.
Yes.
It feels good. Wouldn't be as funny if we don't need to go.
We don't need to go that deep.
Yeah.
Speaking of travel stories, obviously you travel with the team, like you just mentioned. You went to Colorado. Other than the Rogers Center, I just want to get your opinion. What's kind of like the best stadium, kind of like to broadcast from? Because obviously we see the concourse, see the stadium itself, but like behind the scenes, what's the best stadium that you've been to so far?
Have you ever been a place where there's like just zero AC?
Oh, well, I mean, again,
Sacramento?
Not Sacramento. They had the AC going.
Okay.
That would have been a problem. There was a room where they kept audio equipment behind us that had to be freezing cold. So in between, sometimes we go to commercial in between innings, and I just walk into the freezing cold audio equipment room for like 30 seconds, cool off, walk back out. No AC. We did have, and they're great people, but we went to Baltimore last year, I remember. for a round trade deadline, kind of similar to what happened this year, a 4-game series around trade deadline. And Joe Siddle and I were on TV, and the AC broke in the middle of the doubleheader that also had a rain delay in the middle. But when it rains in Baltimore, it doesn't get colder; it just gets more gross. So that was something. But in terms of the best, I haven't been everywhere, I'll admit. My 2 favorites probably so far are Philly's a lot of fun. Cool broadcast booth, cool ballpark, great environment. Caleb Joseph hooked me up with some cheesesteaks that they make down. He knows the guys that make the food in the clubhouse from when he was playing in those clubhouses. So I had some great cheesesteak. And then Houston is cool. Again, cool ballpark, great environment. But just like the positioning of your booth is really nice. I like the view a lot. There are fans maybe 5 feet below you, like the 200 level for us. Rogers Center is probably like 15 feet below where the broadcast booths are at the 300 level. This was like they could have climbed up into the window in the booth if they wanted to, which might have some drawbacks, but it was cool for us. And there's a thing there where you throw literal peanuts and Cracker Jack to people during the 7th inning stretch. They turn around and you get to feel what it's like to be a t-shirt tosser or something. So that was a lot of fun. So I'd say those 2, Philly and Houston, are my favorite.
Okay. No, fair enough, man. Yeah, we want to obviously like doing what we do and everything like that. We hope that one day we can get to a point where we can kind of start traveling, go to all these ballparks. Because right now, like my bingo card in terms of like all my ballparks I've been to and everything, it is not full. Definitely not full. So we got to put in some work. We're gonna get to some baseball talk momentarily, but I have one final question just to ask you. I believe I asked you this when I first met you at Baseball Town, but I'm gonna ask you again in case potentially there has been some other development in this, or maybe you answer the same way. You're on the air all the time, and as somebody that always has a camera in front of myself as well and a microphone and everything, occasionally you say something really damn stupid. What would you say? What would you say is the dumbest thing that you have ever said on the air, where it's like it came out of your mouth and immediately you're like, oh,
we've all been there. We've all been there.
What did I just say?
There's a couple. I call Raptors 905 games in the off season. There's 1 or 2 I promise not on purpose at all Grady Dick calls that I should probably have gone another direction with how I called them, but I don't know what the guidelines are with the podcast rules, so I won't get too into.
No, have at it, Ben. Feel free.
All right, I'll tell you. Again, did not intend this as a joke, a complete accident, but it's out there somewhere publicly, so who cares? He was playing good defense. Grady was on a guy on, I forget what, the College Park Skyhawks, I think the Atlanta Hawks team, and the College Park guy, little shimmy shake, turn around, hits the jumper. Grady's right on top of him, and he hits it. And I just said, like, wow, what a shot from Johnson. Nailed it with right in his face. And, if you fill in the last name there, people enjoy that one a lot. And again, I kind of wish I would think of that on purpose in the moment, but I didn't. It was an accident. In terms of like an actual mess up, I mean, I do it almost every night, but the first game that I ever called, well, not the first I ever called, but the first game I ever called in university was a Syracuse football game against Liberty, home of Green Bay Packer backup quarterback Malik Willis, who I saw play in that game. And Malik Willis and Liberty upset Syracuse in a shocking way. And on the first drive that I called, they handed it off to a running back, and he broke through for about a 70-yard touchdown. And I only realized about 45 yards into the run that it was a different running back than I thought it was. And just was calling the wrong guy straight up. And that's the first.
I feel like that'd be so common. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got a cheat sheet, but like, you know what I mean? It'd be easy to like misinterpret
you don't
someone.
have a spotter like on network TV, especially as a student. Like, you don't have someone pointing out, being like, "Hey, this guy just subbed in for that guy." So,
right.
I mean, I didn't beat myself up over it. It was honestly kind of good. I was like, "Oh, I really screwed something up right away. Now I can't. I'm probably not going to mess up worse than that the rest of the game." So it actually helped.
Well, I've never been live on air doing it, but the amount of times that I'm watching Red Zone and I see like this big tight end catch a ball, and I'm like, That's my guy.
That's
my
Kelce.
fantasy guy right there. And then it's like, no, it's just no. That
it's
is
the
actually,
other 80 number.
It's the other 80 guy who is also a massive tight end looking dude. Yeah, they all seemingly look the same. So we've all been there before, pal. I felt the exact same way. Haven't done it on air though, but thank you for sharing that. We do appreciate it. Let's transition and talk a little bit about this Toronto Blue Jays team. I want to start with the clubhouse, okay? The vibes have been, at least watching them from afar on television, seemingly immaculate. Can you speak a little bit about those vibes right now, and especially now on September 11th as we are, gearing up towards playoff time? We're less than a month away from postseason ball. How are the vibes amongst the lads right now in that clubhouse?
Very good. I would think about as good as anyone on the outside would have heard they were. Myself included on the outside. They seem very, very good. When you talk to guys, clearly this team has come together in a huge way, and it really doesn't matter who you are. I think if you're Joey Loperfido called up 2 days ago, or Max Scherzer, kind of right on the back end looking for one or two more runs at a title, it just seems like everyone is getting along in a huge way. They all believe in each other. I think it's helpful. The way they've been built, every guy has won them a game this year. And if that wasn't true until a couple of nights ago, Tyler Heineman hit his first career walk-off. And I would argue he probably would have won them a game or two earlier in the year anyway. But, like Ernie's won them games, and Miles Straw's won them games, and Davis has won them games. And Ty Francis coming in a short time, he's done a lot to impact.
Even IKF helping out with the other night,
Yeah, he had the game time hit in the ninth inning where they probably should have ended up walking it off in the ninth, but doing the 10th anyway. And so I think that when you have a team like that, with all respect to some of the teams they've had previously, especially thinking about the 2010s teams, those teams were so centered around a couple of guys. They were great teams, but it was Bautista, Encarnacion, and Donaldson. I just think this is a very different type of team that almost forces everyone to get along, because you can't walk in there and act like you're big stuff when the last guy on the bench won you guys a game yesterday and the second last guy on the bench won you a game 3 days ago. And so it's really good. I think it's a nice environment right now. Pretty much a lot of the negative stuff you would have heard is gone. I think there's no division certainly that I can see between older and younger guys or pitchers and hitters. In fact, the way the clubhouse is set up these days, it's a much more scattered around where guys are, instead of like all the pitchers are here and all the outfielders are there and the infielders are here. It's just kind of mixed all around with veterans in the back, but it's not even the case all the time. George is right at the front with Dalton Varsho. So, there's a great environment, I think, right now. And I do think it's allowed them to play maybe even above their collective talent level.
Well, I mean, that's good to hear, right? Because even though they've had some struggles lately, they've had some tough competition and whatnot, but it's good to hear that they're still keeping their hopes up high. We heard from Davis Schneider, who popped on the podcast, basically, even though if they lose, they still feel like they can go out there and they can win the next following game. Now, a guy that is just hit the injured list is Bo Bichette. We obviously know this. People were kind of freaking out and upset. I get it. It's Bo Bichette. It's your number one player. I want to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned should we be for the Blue Jays' success down the road with this Bo Bichette injury?
It's a good question. I mean, I think you should have like a medium level of concern, to be honest. I don't know exactly the number I would put on it. And I say that not discounting how big of a loss he is. He's a huge loss. I mean, Bo Bichette's one of the best players on the roster. There's no doubt about that. I'm sure if you asked a bunch of people, some would say that he's the best player on the roster. And so, there's a lot that you lose without having him there. The only reason that I don't think it's a huge concern is because they're so deep and because they're replacing it with known guys, I think. I look back to when Bo got hurt in 23. They had to bring in Paul DeYoung last second, a move that they weren't going to make until they had to do it. DeYoung obviously struggled as well, so that kind of compounded it, and it just didn't really work out. This time, it's Ernie, and I know they technically acquired IKF, but they know him already. And so you're kind of bringing guys that you already know how they're going to fit into the lineup. There's a lot less question marks, I think. And so it's, to me, a little less disruptive to the team. Still concerning. You still, I think, need Bo Bichette back at some point to get where you want to go in the playoffs. But could they, with their depth and talent, keep the division lead for the next couple of weeks with Bo out, I do think that's possible.
I know that this is pure speculation at this point, so let us know how comfortable you are answering this question. But in terms of the Bo Bichette situation as a whole right now, how worried are you about him walking when he hits free agency? And, in terms of, I guess, the way that you see that right now, how do you think things are going to play out? Once again, disclaimer, obviously this is all speculation at this point.
Yeah, he hasn't, and they have not told me anything to do with any sort of negotiations that hasn't been widely reported already. I certainly think he's going to go to free agency at this point. I mean, it's always possible that some crazy last second extension gets signed, but I think at this point, Bo is earmarked for free agency. And I would say that it should be a concern a bit that he would go. Definitely. He's had a great year, the exact kind of year that he needed to have to go to the market and, command a lot of big money. I do think the Blue Jays will try to bring him back, if I had to guess. And the question will just be, how high up do they want to go and what does the market say? So there's so many questions right now, but I look around and I actually see a lot of teams, I think, with openings at short that I didn't necessarily think would have them earlier. Just looking in the division of Blue Jays, there's not necessarily a consistent shortstop or a lockdown shortstop in Tampa. Bo grew up right there.
True.
The Red Sox have Trevor Story in a deal with opt-outs. He's had a really good year. There's a chance that Trevor Story would opt out, and then who knows what their shortstop situation is. The Yankee shortstop position has not necessarily gone to plan this year. So I think that there are, outside of the Orioles, I think there are a lot of question marks for all the teams in the division around short going forward. And that's only the teams in the division, let alone, the rumors that have swirled, well-founded or not, about the Dodgers trying to jump on that train too. So there could be a lot of competition, and that would not be helpful for the Blue Jays. It would be great for Bo Bichette. It will help him make more money, but it would not be helpful for the Blue Jays. So I would be concerned about him going at this point. Not saying that he is, not saying that he wants to, but I think that he's done enough, at least, that a lot of teams are going to offer him a lot of money, and that makes it more likely that he'll go.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. A lot more competition, right? And that'll be something very interesting that we got to watch and monitor all offseason. Transitioning a little bit, this is a very fresh topic. Well, I guess maybe not so fresh because it's been a topic that's been coming up all season long, and that is Jeff Hoffman and his role as the closer. We keep seeing comments talking about it, saying, hey, why do the Blue Jays keep sticking with Jeff Hoffman? He's blown games, but he's looked very, very good. There's stretches where Jeff Hoffman, his stuff looks immaculate, but then he gives up a lot of loud contact. Where are you at right now with Jeff Hoffman? And do you think the Blue Jays are going to continue putting their trust in him in the ninth inning moving forward? Again, speculation, because you're not John Schneider, you're not the Blue Jays, but how confident are you with Jeff Hoffman moving forward as a closer?
I think at this point he will continue to take on those opportunities. I think that they do have faith in him. I also, I don't think that necessarily there are a lot of well-established options otherwise. And I do think it's pretty rare for a team leading a division mid-September to change their closer. Certainly not everything has gone well. I would not sit here and tell you that. There's been a lot of ups and downs. For the most part, in safe situations, it actually has been fairly effective. I think a lot of the time, some of this stuff has come in some of the tie games, like we saw last night. So, I'm assuming that the most commented option when people are talking about swapping it is Sir Anthony Dominguez, because that's kind of the next established guy. And I just went to look at it. Dominguez, had a bunch of saves as a rookie, and then last year he got to double-digit saves again because he saved a lot of games for the Orioles. He gave up his most career home runs saving games last year. Right. So this is the difficult thing, I think, is you just don't know all the time when you put a guy in the ninth inning who hasn't done it really consistently what's going to happen. And I wouldn't even say Dominguez has done it really consistently with all credit.
He's got a high walk rate too, it's,
I'm gonna pull up the number here. You guys keep tracking, but I have a fun stat to kind of piggyback off that, Ben, but please keep going.
So, it's, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's been perfect with Jeff Hoffman. I don't think he would sit here and tell you that either. But I think that when they're looking at their options right now, that they feel best about him. And there's going to be a lot of work put in, I think, in the offseason when they look back at this year. But I think in the moment right now, They just got to kind of do what they can to get him in the best spot possible. Probably try to avoid, 3 out of 4s right now, like he just did before giving up that homer last night. But, they're going to need those, and they're going to need him to pitch a lot in the playoffs. And they hope that, he did his best for the Phillies in some of the biggest moments. And so I think that you have to hope that kind of that passion comes out and that fire comes out and maybe helps him along to get closer to that form. But I understand the concern. I just don't think that they have a really, really solid other option.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
So to kind of, I guess, just further hammer that point home, because we get comments about this all the time talking about, and the name that gets brought up a lot is Sir Anthony Dominguez. And I want to be very clear right here. I don't have a whole lot of confidence at this current juncture with Jeff Hoffman as the closer. In fact, after watching what we saw yesterday, I was thinking to myself, like, if the Toronto Blue Jays go on a deep run, there will be, at least in my opinion right now, from what we've seen, throughout this season, at least 1 or 2 games where, Hoffman probably blows it. And that's just, when you're looking back at the entirety of the season so far, if the pattern continues, that will be the case. However, that being said, to your point about us not having another option, I do also agree with that as well. And the name that always gets brought up is Sir Anthony Dominguez. But for the same reason as to why people are frustrated with Brendan Little right now, I think you can make a very similar claim with Sir Anthony Dominguez. Brendan Little right now has the highest walk rate among relievers in all of baseball. The 4th pitcher on that list is Sir Anthony Dominguez. So, you know what I mean? It's like, okay,
pick your poison.
Pick your poison right now. Do you want to have the guy in Jeff Hoffman that gives up the loud contact, or do you want to have the guy that, he strikes people out, but he's also going to walk people consistently and put people on base? And then if he does give up the loud contact, well, now you're really out of the ball game. So, I think that you're totally onto something there, man. It's like, it's not an ideal situation, but at the same point, like, there is not a better option right now today.
Yeah, and maybe it's more of a strategic thing that they can shift a little bit rather than actually the closer and name. Maybe you play matchups a little bit more.
Yeah.
And if you really like a certain pocket or group of hitters in the 8th inning for Hoffman, maybe you just throw him in there because you think that they match up well with his stuff, and not that you're taking the job away from him, but maybe you do that, and if it's a bunch of lefties in the 9th, you go to someone else. Or I think there's some options to get around it, and the postseason's crazy. Like, if they make a deep run, a starter will pitch in relief for them at some point, I'm sure, and stuff will happen that we'll never expect. But yeah, it's, in general, the last 2 to 3 innings is still, I think, a concern for the team, because you mentioned like Little and Dominguez have had their ups and downs too, and they got to figure out how to get all these guys going again. Because even if you did what a lot of people were asking, and you put Dominguez in for the 9th and Hoffman for the 8th, it's still the same 2 guys in the last 2 innings, and you still got to get the outs some way. They're not, with all due respect to him, like, they're not going to pull someone out of AAA. I'm not going to name a name actually, but they're not going to pull someone out of AAA and make him the closer. The guys in the pen are the guys in the pen, and they have to get them going regardless of order that they're putting.
Well, speaking of all of those guys in the pen, somebody that we thought or anticipated, I think, might be a late inning reliever, but then since coming over to the Toronto Blue Jays hasn't really had his best stuff, is Louis Varland. And similarly to some of these other names in the pen right now, it's like I shouldn't have said that he hasn't had his best stuff.
His stuff looks great.
His stuff looks great, actually. His stuff looks phenomenal. But for whatever reason, it is just not working right now. It's not playing, and he's getting beat up ever since coming to Toronto. What is it that you've seen with Louis Varland that, is, I guess, maybe causing this? Or because from us, like, watching the game, I'm seeing these pitches, and I am seeing that 99 mile per hour fastball just absolutely erupt from the mound right there, and it looks good.
Breaking balls are sharp,
they're still getting hit.
Yeah, the fastball especially is the weird one to me. Guys seem to be on that pitch more than some other people who throw maybe a mile or 2 per hour slower than him. For some reason, they like his fastball, and that could be a delivery thing, or it is a fairly straight fastball. Even a lot of guys, 4-seamers, have a little bit of arm side kind of 2-seam run, but he doesn't have as much of that. But I think for Varland, one adjustment he made that I liked that I saw last night, and maybe he can continue that going forward, is just using a third pitch a bit more. He started to flip in a slider a little bit, and it got him in trouble here or there. I think one of the guys who reached before he came out was on a slider, but I think it was a nice change of pace a little bit for him, because his fastball curveball, even though he throws the curve hard, it's such a big difference. Maybe guys are just picking it up right away, that it's the fastball or the curve. That slider is kind of right in between in terms of miles per hour, and has a spin that's similar to the curve, but probably not as tight as the curve in that respect. So I think that can help just keep guys off of it. Maybe if he wants to use his off-speed pitch a little bit more, something with some arm side run, I think that wouldn't be the worst either. But it has been weird. I think it's been a couple of things for him. They're just really seeing the fastball. He's still getting used to being a reliever, and now has been traded away kind of shockingly from his hometown team. So I do wonder if that's just taken him a bit of time to adjust to that as well. And he pitched to a 2 ERA in Minnesota. There's a chance he was due for a little bit of regression. I mean, still on the season, I think his ERA is around 3. And maybe he just wasn't a 2.05 ERA guy, and there was going to be a little bit. And unfortunately for the Blue Jays, they might have picked it up right as some of that regression was about to set in.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Now, I know we only got you for a little bit more. I wanted to ask you about the postseason. Blue Jays, obviously, we're right there at the top of the AL. The AL feels kind of weak right now. But what other AL team do you see as being a potential threat in the postseason in a 3-game, a 5-game, or a 7-game format?
Yeah, so this could be a thing. It happens with broadcasters all the time. When you see people, you end up liking them more or thinking they're better sometimes than they are. But I really think the Houston Astros, to be honest. I would be about as scared of them as anyone. I look at them and the Yankees as the two teams with a lot of postseason experience. If Texas comes in, then they have some postseason experience too. But Houston, the Yankees have a lot more of it, I think, that frankly the Blue Jays do, or the Tigers, or the current Red Sox group. And I really like the Astros pitching. The Blue Jays have avoided Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez in this series. It's a big 2 guys to duck. Like, those are 2 of the best in all of baseball. And I think that their pen, when they get Hader back, becomes really, really vicious. We've seen some of their guys already pitch really well in this series. So I would be pretty scared of them. They've led this division without Jordan all year. Now they have him back. He's really, really good.
He's a robot.
Yeah, he's nuts. I would give that guy any amount of money, but unfortunately he's already extended by them for like under $20 million a year.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Operate from them. But Correa back. I mean, he's been obviously a huge playoff performer. I wouldn't be shocked if they made the World Series out of the AL, frankly. And I don't think many people would be, because they're the Houston Astros, and that's just kind of what they do.
Well, they do it every single year, man. Speaking of broadcasters, and you brought up the Yankees right there, a recent Toronto Blue Jays broadcaster, the GOAT himself, Mr. Buck Martinez. Now, he came out recently and he said this. I'll do my best impression, all right? The Yankees, they're not a good team, all right? I don't care what their record is. They have a lot of wild pitches. They make a lot of mistakes in the field. They don't run the bases very well. If they don't hit home runs, they don't have a chance to win. That is word for word what it is that Mr. Buck Martinez said. It fired up a lot of Toronto Blue Jays fans. I'll tell you what, man. Like, I already believe that Buck Martinez's name needs to be on the level of excellence. That's just a further exclamation point for why it needs to be there. But what are your thoughts on the New York Yankees right now? Like, is Buck Martinez onto something there that, hey, maybe this Yankee squad, like, as much as the media likes to gas them up, maybe they're not as good as some people think they are?
They're if Buck is there, I was doing my game while he did that, but I did hear the comments after. Talking about fundamentally, I think he totally has a point. They don't run the bases very well. They do commit a lot of errors. They would commit a lot of bad defensive plays beyond errors too. So to me, they're a really talented team. I mean, they have 4 guys in their lineup on a given day who've won an MVP, and not that long ago. The latest one would have been, or the furthest away one would have been Stanton's MVP, but between him and Bellinger, Goldschmidt, and Judge, they got a lot of talent, and if we're all honest with ourselves, if they had Garrett Cole right now, this might be a different world than the world we're currently living in, or a healthy Luis Gil. But that's baseball. That happens, and the Blue Jays have had injuries too. But what I would say is they're a very talented team, but they don't seem to get everything out of their roster this year. And I think you could argue that really the last couple of years, their roster has not pieced together very well. They were great last year because they had Judge and Soto, two of the top 5 hitters in the entire sport, but it wasn't like the rest of the team was all that good. In 23, they really struggled in 23. When Judge went down, they just didn't win many games and ended up missing the playoffs. So I think they're a really talented team, but fundamentally, they definitely have some flaws, and it's left them open, I think, for the Blue Jays to kind of go past them and lead this division. I will say at the same time, homers are even more important in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. And if these guys, who I didn't totally believe in last year in the Yankees, homer their way to a World Series again, I wouldn't be totally shocked. I don't think they're as good as they were last year, but Giancarlo Stanton went on a huge heater in the playoffs last year. If he does that, as Chisholm hits a couple homers, you can win playoff games on the back of 2-3 run home runs, and all of a sudden you're in the next round.
Yeah, no, that is the one thing they got, and they do it really, really good. Ben, thank you so much for coming on to Blue Jays today. We really appreciate having your time here. We know you're a busy man, so we got to let you go, but I guess for your 2 sakes, I hope the Packers win.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys. A lot of fun.
Thanks,
Take care,
guys.
Ben.
You will obviously see and hear Ben Shulman when you listen in to the Toronto Blue Jays. So so stay tuned for that, everybody. But shout out to him. Shout out to the Blue Jays in general, man. What a season. It makes our job so much easier when we get to talk about this team winning and not doing whatever the hell they were doing last year. But folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to hit that like, smash that subscribe button. $4 a month to become a YouTube member. Shout out and thank you to all of our YouTube members. You guys are awesome.
Guys, thank you so much for watching.
And as always,
go Jays, go!